Version 44, without a shadow of the doubt, is the biggest update since version 42 came out, which completely changed the game. A lot of people have been complaining about the lack of jungle changes and general polishing on the game. So did the version 44 changes help at all? And do let me know down in the comments below what you think of the changes so far. And if you do enjoy my content, then please do subscribe to the channel, it's always very appreciated. Without any further ado though, let's jump right into it. So first, let's tackle the HUD, probably one of the biggest changes to the game. Overall, I do like it, but they did say in the post they talked about originally of revealing the HUD that people like me, who've been playing pretty much since Paragon was thin, would be very hard to transition to the new HUD, and I can fully agree with that. It's been very hard to get used to. For example, the health and mana being up at the top's really hard for me to get used to, and for it to be a lot smaller and really hard to register. Even though now I do have my health and mana bar because of this issue right next to my hero, especially when I'm low on mana, I don't really know how much mana is needed for an ability, and then I have to quickly look up, and it's just not as clear to me yet. And that's something maybe I have to get used to, but it seems a common complaint, especially on Reddit. And it's also hard to see the ability cooldowns compared to the original design, and that again may be something I have to get used to, but I find it hard. For example, when I was playing Grux, I was halfway through a team fight more looking at the cooldown of my abilities, knowing when they were actually going to come online rather than anything else, which always isn't a benefit. You want to be looking at the action when the action is happening, so it may take a while to adjust, which is fine. However, one thing I'm very happy they did, which maybe some people wouldn't understand, is that adding a tutorial feel to the HUD. Hopefully over time, more pro players like me can, sort of take that away because we know everything about the game. For example, the power plays showing up when you have an advantage or the enemy has an advantage, seeing Fangtooth spawning and or Prime spawning, stuff like that, I know that's going to happen, but I think it's really great to have those tips for newer players, and I think this is a fantastic start to add in some sort of tutorial to the game. I know, the players that have been playing for so long don't need this and they're going to complain about it, but really, if you think about it, a lot of people have been complaining that some people don't understand what they need to do. It's been a steep learning curve for newer players to understand Paragon, and this new HUD helps that drastically. They know when Fangtooth spawns, they know how many stats each team has of Fangtooth. They also know where it spawned, and they know what orb Prime spawns, they know if they had advantage or not. Again, for someone like me, that isn't really needed. But for majority of the newer player base, and especially going forward as Paragon gets more advertised, I think that is a big plus, and something I'm really happy in they're starting to introduce to the game. And in the HUD, thumbs up there. It's going to get a while for me to get used to get sort of an overall opinion on that. Now let's move over to the jungle changes. I've been a jungle main for a good few months now. However, since version 43 came out, I believe, the jungle's been pretty much in the worst state possible. Since Monolith, it's really dull, it didn't add anything at all, and as a jungler you felt, just punished for trying to gank, and it just didn't feel rewarding whatsoever to be a jungler player. It felt really boring. So with version 44, I was very surprised that from Monolith's standpoint, it came from the worst jungle point in version 43 to the best the jungle has ever been on Monolith. So what have they done and what are my opinions on it? For example, the main design change they've done on the strong side of the jungle is really open it up more. They've made the single camps a bit more claustrophobic, pushing them into a corner a bit more, so again to make more of an open spacious feel in the middle where the green buff is. Also getting rid of that big statue in the middle and making it sort of this triangle thing instead really helps with that as well, with verticality. I really like these changes. Again, it makes it so if you want a team fight in the jungle, you can, and you don't feel like it's a complete and utter mess and it's really awkward to move around. It's not that anymore. It's very inviting to go in and out, and it doesn't really change the layout of it. It's funny because once they did the full update to the the graphics changes, everyone's like, oh, they're not going to change the jungle design again. They put so much work and detail on the original jungle, why would they change it with all the graphics update? And it only took them about 6 weeks later, and here we go, they've completely and utterly changed the jungle again, which I'm a really big fan of. So overall, the strong side of the jungle, really big fan of what they've done there. On the off side of the jungle, on the off lane, I'm also a huge fan of the new buff. I think, the good balance of buffs here. You have the green buff, which is going to help you farm, and then you have the black buff, which is going to help you gank. I think it's nice to have it on the offlane side, so it gives the offlane something. The offlane's getting completely bullied in the offlane. They can at least grab this buff and sort of help them out. Same with the jungler. It means you have more incentive to go to the offlane side early on, grab this buff, probably once you get the first river buff, and then you may be able to do a lot more attacking the offlane side, which is always a benefit, and I think that's a really nice incentive there. Overall, jungle changes, massive fan of them overall, thumbs up there. But I will be doing a more in-detailed guide on this, and probably more of the changes I quickly go over in this video, like the hero reworks. I'm definitely going to do single videos on that, really go into detail. So again, if you enjoy the content, stick around for those. Now let's go into probably the most controversial topic, is the minion changes and last hitting. So when this was announced, of course, everyone, went crazy thinking, oh, it's going to be so easy to do everything in the game now, easy peasy, no skill level at all. And of course, the last hitting, as to no one's surprise probably, is not as bad as people thought. It definitely was overreacted. It feels decent. In mid lane, for example, you have to focus more instead of farming, but more to poke the enemy mid laner. If you have to make them back, that means you can farm while they don't. So it's more about, being aggressive more in the mid lane rather than sitting back and just slowly picking away at the farm. You can still do that, but I feel the only way you're going to get an advantage over the other mid laner is either one, your jungler ganks to help you kill them, or you just push them away and keep poking them until they have to back, leaving you there to farm freely. So that's something which I like. And then again, in the safe lane, I sort of like it. I don't know, it's a weird change. It's easier without a shadow of a doubt, but I like the change overall. I feel it doesn't mean you have to focus so much on every single minion and waiting for the last hit. It means you can focus so much more on the more important stuff and the more rewarding stuff skill wise. I don't have to focus on these minions as much. I can focus on the map or what my offlane is doing. Do I need to rotate the river buffs? All this stuff is a lot more in the front of your head rather than concentrating purely and taking tunnel vision on killing minions, and that's what I'm a fan of there. It's a good start, and again, that may change over time, but overall, I'm alright with it. It's not that bad at all, really. Now we're going to do a quick fire on all the hero reworks, just stating each one pretty much and just going over my general opinions. Again, I'm probably going to be doing complete new guides for all these heroes, so if you're a fan of these heroes, I have some great tips for you, probably coming up in the next week or two once I get all the gameplay and information I need to make the best guide possible. So first, Gideon. I really like how they split the meteors up. The new one feels great. It's super satisfying to hit, and it is somewhat of a skill shot, something you've got to get used to. And I like how they split the damage up as well. The main meteor does slow but doesn't do as much damage, but the new one, can't remember the name on top of my head, apologise, does more damage. So I like they split that up, and it's great to combo them together, going boom boom and killing someone. Really, really satisfying. Huge fan of that. And then the ultimate, I like it does a stun, it makes it more worthwhile, and actually an ultimate, especially with the cooldown and mana cost. But I feel the stun needs scaling, especially for the early game. I feel early game, especially for ganking, I feel the stun's a little bit too good and lasts way too long. For example, if I'm getting in the mid lane against a gadget, and my jungler wants to rotate and gank, all I need to do is literally ult the gadget, and they're dead. Jungler comes in, we do big damage, they're dead. That's it. And that I do feel that the stun maybe needs to be 1 second, the level 1, and 2 seconds and 3 seconds as you level it up. So it's not as ridiculous early game, but I like how the damage is nothing. The damage is it doesn't really do any damage at all, which I'm not bad about at all. I like that. It definitely shouldn't be doing any damage for how strong it is. The only big problem I have with the ultimate, however, is that you can't purify when you're stunned, and that leaves you with very, very, very few options to do anything when you are stunned. You have 1 gem and 2 cards that can purify you, cleanse you from the stun when you take damage or have spell block, that is the gem. That's not good. I still feel if you get stunned and you have a Purify card, you should be able to activate the Purify card. That's what Purify cards are for. That's why I hardly use them in the decks, because I'm like, what's the point of me having this Purify card if Gideon stuns me? There's no point. There should be a really cool card, especially for support, being able to link to someone and purify them. I think that would be an absolutely fantastic support card, and that's something they certainly should do. Overall though, happy with Gideon changes. Now onto Grux. He does feel a little underwhelming at the moment, but he hits really hard, and you know, it's sort of adjusting to him having low mobility and sort of getting cards to help him, having speed boosts and blinks and all that stuff. But overall, it's a very unique change. He's a very unique jungler, which I like. Always having unique heroes is great. Really like the changes, and he is an absolute monster if you can farm up with him for sure. Then Rampage, it's really hard because I missed the pounce. That's something I have to really get, it's hard for me to get used to. His health regen, especially in the jungle, is overtuned. It's way too strong. You can get like late game 100 health regen easily in combat. So that's in combat, you're getting 100 health regen, and he's already tanky. And that's not even ulting. Ult on top of that, damn, that's mean. Also with his boulder, I didn't realise when you grab your boulder, you move super slow. That's something that really had to get used to. Maybe it's just a balance change, and I sort of agree with that, you know. I do agree with that there, it does balance it. His new ability, Rumble, is nice, the one where you do slow little bits of damage and nice slow. It's good at wave clearing, I guess it's good at keeping enemies near you, which is sort of needed again. If these heroes don't have escapes or ways to engage, then they definitely need some way to keep heroes near them. So I do like this ability, especially when you ult, you do it big. I also like when you use your ultimate now as well, you instantly throw the boulder, which you did before but wasn't as big of a deal, but I feel it's such a big of a deal now because you can't engage that well and how slow you are when you actually use the boulder. So it's really nice when you ult over there. So overall I like Rampage, but he definitely is too strong and needs a little nerf to his health regen, but overall he's a true tank monster, as he always should be. Then let's go on to Twin Blast. Overall, I do love his changes. He feels so unique as a carry now compared to the other carries, which you always want. You want unique heroes. His basic attacks hit really weak but are like lasers, and his passive is honestly fine. It just adds a little bit damage, doesn't really do anything else. It doesn't really lock onto heroes at all. So yeah, you know, everyone complaining about that was just bad wording on Epic's part, but I don't see much changes there. I do love his new grenade, it's amazing, it's a nice skill shot and very satisfying to hit. A nice slow, a nice poke, nothing too much, but I have it already and I've only played in 2 games, but I already had one clip where I was able to throw a grenade, just hit a Shinbi, so I could catch her up just enough to finish her off. That's fantastic. His dash feels like a true dash. I don't know if they increased the range on it at all, but it definitely feels more impactful now. Which I like, it makes him a very high mobility, weak hero. If you can get onto him, he's dead, but you know, it's a lot of skill to maneuver yourself around as Twin Blast. And finally, his ultimate, I do like the changes to make it quicker and, you know, a bit easier to hit with it. Means that you can really poke enemies from long range and finish them off. Again, I was against a Shinbi and pretty much 3 times in a game, she got low, she tried to dash away, I lose my ultimate and it cut down the last quarter of her health, and easy peasy. So thumbs up for Twin Blast. Last one with Fent, haven't played him at all yet, so I apologise and I can't give an opinion on him yet. But overall, I've heard from my friends playing him, he seems pretty good so far. They do like the changes overall, especially with his ultimate. It definitely is a lot stronger than it was before. Now let's go on to the final change, being Fangtooth. I love how we have another strong buff to compete for. I've missed it so much. It spawned super early on, which I was very surprised about, but I love how even though it doesn't hit super hard, it does take a while, more importantly. Early game, meaning the enemy team has time to counter it. For example, you will definitely need your jungler or tanky hero to tank the damage, or you say you have your carry, so you do have to commit a lot of players towards it, again within the first 15 minutes. And also would take still 10 to 15 seconds to kill. So if as an enemy team they aren't able to counter you in that time, then that's their fault at the end of the day. The only 2 issues, however, I have with it is 1, Chimera can solo it rather early on easily. That means he doesn't lose much health. It still takes a while, and that's maybe something we have to learn and adapt to, is thinking, okay, Chimera can get this buff really early on, so as a jungler I may need to look over there a bit more. But again, it was going to take him 20 to 25 seconds again early on to actually take it. Maybe Rampage 2 with his regen, which is again a bit bonkers right now. They can do that really well and no other jungler can do that, so maybe adding Blight to the Raptor or Fangtooth would be nice, but except for that I'm really happy with the overall Fangtooth, how tanky and tricky it is and how big of an objective it is. Secondly, the only other issue I have with it is that the buffs may be a teeny bit too good with the power stacking. Remember, every single buff you get from Fangtooth is permanent throughout the rest of the game. Maybe lower it for 3 power per kill or something, or maybe, you know, at the later stages it doesn't gain you power, like for the one that gives you 15% damage to non-heroes. Maybe you don't add the power onto that because that gets a bit bonkers. I feel like an early game comp team will always win over a late comp team now, because they can get Fangtooth so early on. If your team can dominate and be a big boss for the first 15 minutes and you have decent communication, you can just get Fangtooths, while the enemy team that's more late comp, which isn't bad at all. You know, you have early comp, then you have late team compositions. The late games is not really a thing anymore, because if the early comp teams can get, you know, Raptors early, that's going to be a problem. And, you know, that's something I can talk about. One, big change of Fangtooth, going in the right direction, but I do think there's a little tweaks they need to do to it, but massive fan that there's another actual worthwhile objective on the map. Then the last thing I want to talk about is the general meta and with cards. They definitely needs to still add more cards. I think the overall balance cards is alright right now, definitely one of the best times it's ever been since version 42 has launched. However, I feel so many cards are just being used and are very easy to use. For example, I shouldn't see a carry having to use growth totem. And the amount of growth totems I see, or the spike rings, which gives you that health regen, it's, you know, it's a bit too much, and those cards definitely need to be tweaked a bit more. Hopefully they change most of the stuff in the next big patch, which will be version 44.3, and hopefully we get some of these cards addressed and they do add more on. Because I definitely feel we're at the point now where the game's in a good state, they just need to start adding these cards on, which will come over time. But again, this was a bit more longer video than I expected it to be, but there's a lot to cover really here. And again, I'm going to go over a lot more detail on the jungle changes, all the hero reworks in their own specific guides over the next week or two, so if you have stuck to the end, very much appreciated. Do watch all my other videos when they come on version 4, so do subscribe. Thank you again all very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.